Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Raja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Raja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradari Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Hare Krishna. Good morning. So this is a little last minute for me, but we'll try to make it work. And we'll have 3 surprises for you today. Now, would you like to know what the surprises are? Good, because then it wouldn't be a surprise. Okay. But one of them I'll tell you. We'll try to make the class a little shorter if need be, because last week I spoke on the most easiest to understand, straightforward part of the Bhagavatam, the one that you just read it and you get it. In other words, the 5th canto. So, excuse my sarcasm. I understand, but I'm not sure if there are still questions on the 5th canto. Does anybody here want to continue that discussion or have other thoughts on their mind? Anybody? Because I thought I would leave time if there were some other 5th canto mysteries to be had. Any no calls? Going once? Going twice? Going 3 times? Okay, we don't have to do 5th canto, but I'll leave plenty of time for questions if things come up. The 5th canto has often bewildered devotees. Now, I'll give you one thing you didn't know about the 5th canto. Who has ever studied the cover of the 5th canto in detail and noticed something strange on it? Very, very strange. Somebody have a 5th canto here? No. Is there? I'll bring you a 5th canto. we'll show you something that ties in to a theme of this class, and then we'll begin the class. Thank you. It's right here. Yes. Of course, I need a magnifying glass for this one. A little hard to see without a magnifying glass, but it's there. If you look at the fifth canto, it's a picture of the universal destruction and a bunch of stars. Who here has heard of subliminal perception? Okay. Prabhupada Priya, what is it?
There's the artist or the designer has some intention. So like, in designing or drawing the image, the creator had some intention, like some message that they wanted to convey that's not obvious, but it strikes your mind in such a way that you don't really notice it, but it does affect you.
Yes, exactly. When I was a young boy, we would go to the movie theater, and I think they don't do this anymore. And there would always be an intermission. And as it builds up to the intermission, it would flash on the screen, eat popcorn. And it would flash so quickly that you wouldn't notice it. Nobody would notice it, but it affected the subtle mind. And boy, was there a line for popcorn. Similarly, in advertising, and this probably was faded out after a book came out exposing this, for liquor ads. Now, what mode of nature is liquor? Ignorance. So what they did in liquor ads, it's typically a glass of some liquor with ice cubes in it. Very typical in the ad. Hidden in the ice cubes are images of genitalia, of death, of hangman. These are mode of ignorance images. And I've seen them. I mean, there was a book on this, came out discussing it, and shows you. And then after that, I went and got a Time magazine. I was shocked. It's all there because it gives that subtle influence of the modes of nature. And that's one reason why it's so important to have good association. When I asked Prabhupada, what's the most important thing for a fledgling neophyte like myself to understand Krishna? And remember, when the first Mayapur festival happened, there was, as I told the story, there was one guest at the first Mayapur festival. There was no buildings. There was a hut for Prabhupada and some tents. And there was one guest. And there was 60, 70 devotees, very, very anxious in the preaching mood, all younger than most of you. These devotees, and they were anxious to preach, and they had one person to preach to, me. So I had to approach Prabhupada. I said, Prabhupada, what's really most important? Because everyone tell me what the most is. Most is, offer your food, get up early, take a cold shower. What's most? I want to know what's most important, not what some people think is important for them. And Prabhupada made it clear to me, good association. So that's why we associate. We won't do subliminal here, except in one case, the fifth canto. And on the cover in the fifth canto, and I can show you later, the old edition, on the, oh, thank you. Let's see if we can see it or not. And it's not a good one. It's hard to see. Right over here, it says, it spells out, you can't see it real clear, but in the original edition I have, it's very clear. It says the word dead. Yeah. That's the idea of subliminal perception, which is very relevant for today's class. So we'll get to that in a little bit. So the fifth canto is a special canto, and it's halfway through the Bhagavatam. And its purpose is to really challenge us, as I said last time in class, the speed bump to allow us to get deeper into it. And if there are questions, we'll answer it. If there are no questions, we'll go on to class. So, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we are in the 9th canto. We'll begin. Oh my God. This story, in the 9th canto, we're doing various generations, going through them very quickly. And in each generation, there is a story of importance. Some people, why all these names and lists? Because it's trying to establish that these are real people who did real things and made real mistakes. And what's that like? In other words, we're trying to relate to it. I personally find the Chaitanya Charitamrita even easier to relate to, because it took what happened at the same time that Chaitanya Charitamrita was happening in India. What major event happened in America? Yes.
Christopher Columbus.
Yes, Christopher Columbus thought he discovered something the Vikings already knew about. So this is modern history. So the CC is very modern. That's why I read before I go to bed every night, the CC, because it takes place within my generations. And you know, meaning I'm not that old, but it takes place within recorded history time. So we can relate to the people and their moods and all. The Bhagavatam is an ancient text, but we're human and we relate to what they do. So in this chapter, the sons of Sagara meet Lord Kapila Dev, who is an incarnation of the Lord. There's some adventures, and there were some children, and they approached Lord Kapila. These were co-wives, and the first set of sons approached Lord Kapila they were looking for a sacrificial horse that had been stolen, and they approached him in a very angry mood. You must have our horse. And then they burned to ashes. Now, it's not like Muchikunda burning to ashes. Lord Kapila Dev didn't use Superman X-ray vision eyes, which apparently others at that time did have, but he didn't use the Superman X-ray vision method. Rather, he just because of his purity, people approach with an impure heart. I mean, he is the Lord. They just evaporated. And so the story of how they were impure and why is one of the lessons in here. And I'm just leading up to here. Then later on, the good sons approach Lord Kapila. And the verse we have today is discussing their prayers. So I'm just giving a little context to where we get to and why this is here. And we'll begin with this verse. I am going to ask one of the ladies to lead the chanting of the verse, and I have to queue up a video. 22. Yeah. Who would like to lead on the ladies' side? Ladies before gentlemen is the etiquette we do in this world. Who would like to lead? Somebody take a microphone? Yeah, fine.
Ye deha bhajas triguna pradhana gunan vipashyantyuta vatamascha yanmayaya mohita chetasastvam vidu swasamstam nabahi prakashaha Ye deha bhajas triguna pradhana gunan vipashyantyutavatamascha yanmaya mohita chetasastvam vidu swasamstam nabahi prakashaha.
Deha bhaja srimana pradhana vipashyanti utavatamascha mayaya mohita chetasasva swasamstam nabahi
We'll stop here. And because time is short, I'm going to go right into the translation. Who would like to read that? Kevin, why don't you read? Okay.
My Lord, you are fully situated in everyone's heart, but the living entities covered by the material body cannot see you, for they are their intelligence being covered by Sattva Guna, Raja Guna, and Tamaguna. They can see only the actions and reactions of these three modes of material nature. Because of the actions and reactions of the modes of ignorance, whether the living entities are awake or sleeping, they can see only the workings of material nature. They cannot see your lordship.
Okay, why don't you read nicely? Why don't you read the purport, please?
Unless one is situated in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, one is unable to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord is situated in everyone's heart. However, because the conditioned souls are influenced by material nature, they can see only the actions and reactions of material nature, but not the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One therefore must purify himself internally and externally. Apavitra pavidruva. To keep ourselves externally clean, we should bathe 3 times daily, and for internal cleanliness, we must cleanse the heart by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. The members of the Krishna consciousness movement must always follow the principle. Then it will one day be possible to see the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face.
Okay, thank you very much. So we're talking about what we can see and what we can't see. There are illusions. So first, I'm going to share an illusion with you, and then some more. I'm going to pass this around, and what you do is you just hold it like about this high from your eyes, about here, and then try to touch the front. Right. You see the front? Touch it. Pass it around. Is that working for you? Well, you just hold it about here. And let's see if you can touch the frock. Okay. try to teach my grandkids a little bit about science. So I get these little toys like this. Illusion. But illusion is important. So I'm going to teach you a little something about illusion now. So let me, yeah, I'm going to do that right now. Have it cued. Okay. Okay. You have to hold it just the right way, but have all of you seen the frog? The 3D frog? Yeah, when I was in college, I made a laser beam and you shoot it at a special film, and in front of us would be a Volkswagen that you could walk around 360 degrees in every direction and see it. That was the original holograph. Now they're more sophisticated. So there are illusions. So we're going to talk about illusions and you'll see why. So let me get this cued right now. Sorry about this little technical. Yeah, now I got it. Okay.
Ten mind-blowing optical illusions.
Flat third dimension. Nothing appears abnormal about this Rubik's Cube until you realize it is a two-dimensional image. This illusion is created with a distorted perspective of an image that requires to be viewed at a specific vantage point to create the 3D effect. This is the same method used in the very popular 3D sidewalk art. The Ames Room. The Ames Room illusion creates a cartoonish and very intriguing effect of drastic size differences between people and objects. By tricking your depth perception with an irregular shaped room, the walls, ceiling, and floor align in a way that will appear normal at just the right angle. This causes everything else in the room to appear to warp in size. Following eyes. Here is a simple but very effective illusion that makes it look like these little guys are watching you. This is done by manipulating the way you see perspective and the brain's natural ability to pick out faces and patterns. The head is actually concave, and this sets up a contradiction in your brain to make it look like it's turning to follow you. The dress. Whether you see black and blue or white and gold, this dress has caused debate and confusion. Though the dress is indeed black and blue, it has become a popular example of color constancy. Depending on individual perception, as well as current room lighting, the dress can be seen as either black and blue or white and gold. Circle illusion. It is easy to assume that these dots are moving in a circular pattern. However, they are not. Each dot is traveling in a straight line while on its own path from one end of the circle to the other. By adding each dot one by one, you can see the illusion come into place. Motion illusions. These images are not animated, but they appear to be moving due to the cognitive effects of interacting color contrasts and shape positioning. If you're feeling skeptical, pause this video and watch as these images continue to wave, twist, and pulse. Animation illusion. This clever and old-timey technique creates a multiple frame animation on a single sheet of paper. By manipulating the mind and eye, these still images come to life using a simple graded card. Drop-off room. This 3D painted room is enough to trigger one's acrophobia, as it seems to be a massive drop-off. This painting was created by Master of Optical Illusions, Regina Silveira, whose work often contains a larger-than-life bent reality. Yes, no. Artist Marcus Rates specializes in optical illusions with his mind-manipulating 3D creations. A prime example of his work is this sculpture of the word yes that can be read from one angle, but move to another angle and it morphs into the word no. Backwards chair. This chair appears as normal as a chair can be at first glance, but just wait until this man has a seat. It might feel surreal at first, but this chair is actually built in a warped and irregular way that makes it look like it is facing one way, but in fact, it is facing the other way.
Well, and how many here were able to see the 3D frog? How many were bewildered by it? It's done with, of course, concave mirrors that create an optical illusion. So these are optical illusions. Optical illusions are fun, and it tied into that, like some liminal perception. It shows that our senses, a sense acquiring method, has its limitations on what we can obtain from our senses. So the purpose of this particular verse here, and I'm going to read the verse one more time. My Lord, you are fully situated in everyone's heart, but the living entities covered by this material body cannot see you, for they're influenced by the external energy conducted by the three modes of material nature. Their intelligence being covered by sattva guna, raja guna, even sattva guna is a very important point, and tamaguna. They can only see the actions and reactions, these three modes of nature. Because of these actions and reactions to the modes of ignorance, whether the living entities are awake or sleeping, they can only see the workings of material nature. They cannot see your lordship. So Prabhupada was once asked this question: do you see God? Anybody know Prabhupada's answer?
If I said I did, would you believe me?
Yeah, if I said I did, would you believe me? In other words, by what criteria do you have to see God? It's like, for example, the argument is given by the theist and the atheist. Both claim there is a God, there isn't a God. They both make a claim. It's an epistemic claim, it's a metaphysical claim, and the atheists have a problem. What's the logical problem the atheists have? Not the agnostics, but the atheists. They have a logical problem. There is no God. Yes, Prabhupada, microphone, please.
They go on talking about someone that they believe doesn't exist.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're saying, we know there is no God. Well, how do they know? I mean, what's their evidence that there is no God? And how do you, it's very hard to prove a negative. If somebody came, I was listening to on Theology Unleashed, from which brilliant series Arjuna from Australia puts out. And in it, he's having a Hridayanath analyze an atheist arguments. And the arguments are, well, I don't think there's a God, but you can't know it. If the opposing view was agnostic, I don't know, and you can work on it. We say, I know there is no God. Well, that means you must be God, because only God can know in the universe there is no God. We have to deal with creation. One of the big mysteries, something the Bhaktivedanta Institute works on, is let's assume there was a big bang. What happened before that? ex nihilo? Does something come from nothing? Even the science world says, no way. So what was there? Well, it was certainly mathematics, because as I mentioned last time, when we have all the physical constants, Planck's constants, Planck's distance, there's so many, speed of light. If these constants were a little different, according to modern cosmology, life couldn't exist as we know it, and carbon-based life, it wouldn't exist. So before there was a Big Bang, there was math. Where is math? Math is in the head. Nobody can walk down the street and see, a 6 + 5 = 11. Nobody can see that. You can't. You can only count. You can count on your fingers. I have 11 fingers, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6 + 5. So, but you can't actually, it's a concept in the mind. So numbers begin with mind. So the point being made in this verse, in order to see the Lord, we must be above the modes of nature. And that's really what's discussed here. Now, curiously, it's above, I can understand being above ignorance, because you can't see anything when you're sleeping or dull or drunk. And above passion, when you're passion, you see friends, you see enemies, it's a very excited state. You can't have a cool head. Once, one reporter went to Prabhupada and said, "Why do you shave your head?" And Prabhupada said, "Why do you shave your legs? Better a cool head and warm legs." And that reporter had nothing else to say. So in order to have a cool head, to understand deeper philosophical things, you can't do that in passion, but in goodness. But here it's saying the intelligent being covered by sattva guna. What does that mean? I mean, we all try to get to goodness. We know from the Gita, the characteristics of goodness. Somebody tell me some of the characteristics of goodness, please. Peaceful. Yes, more. Say again. I'm not hearing so. Self-controlled. What else? Clean, tolerant. What else? A sense of duty. What else? Empty. Sometimes, yes. What else? Yes, a key characteristic. You know what's to be done and what's not to be done. I mean, God, I like to be in goodness one day. It sounds cool. Microphone, please.
The undividable spiritual nature common to all beings.
You see the one behind the many. Yes, but here it is saying in a bewildering way, their intelligence being covered by goodness. Oh, goodness, what does this mean? Yeah, somebody help me here on feeling bloopdom coming. This doesn't make sense to me. I've been trying to be in goodness for so many years, and here I'm said, you're wasting your time. I could have been in ignorance all this time. Yes, Advaita Prabhu.
Well, one of the main pitfalls of goodness is to think we're better than others.
But isn't that a little bit of passion? Yes, no, but you get very close. You're really almost there. Almost, almost. Christina, microphone there, thank you.
When you're in the mode of goodness, like we mentioned, you know like what's to be done and what's not to be done. So you still see duality. So if you think about like the different grades of being like a Mahatma, right? There's like the kind of regular Mahatma is like, oh yeah, there are good qualities and bad qualities. But when you're like the Uttama, topmost Mahatma, then you don't really see any distinctions.
Yeah. Was Prabhupada on the first class or second class platform? Ooh, trick question. Yes.
Gopi Jivana has something to add over here.
Oh, sorry. I don't look over there, so you have to yell at me or throw something at me.
Now you've actually asked two questions, so can I try and answer both?
Yes, I did ask.
I think Prabhupada was on both. He's a Uttama Adhikari, but for the sake of preaching, he puts himself in a kind of.
He makes distinctions.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you have to, for the sake of outreach, sometimes you have to make distinctions. But he was situated in seeing everything as equal. But if you do that, then you don't know who to talk to and who not to. You don't know what to do. Very, very well put. There's Sudha Sattva. What does Sudha Sattva mean? Pure goodness. So the answer, and to follow up on what Advaita Prabhu said, Sattva Guna always has a little bit of contamination to it. It's not free of some passion and ignorance. It's not free of it. It may be in goodness, but it's mixed. Sudha Sattva is complete goodness. So when they say rise above goodness, their intelligence being covered by goodness, it doesn't mean we don't strive for goodness. Yet, it also means that don't be satisfied in goodness. And sometimes be, Shamla, you have something to add? Please.
I was thinking about the mode of goodness also being a pitfall in the sense that it's comfortable. Like I've noticed in my life when I'm in that space of just, oh, everything feels good. It's almost like the material world can feel like a home, like, oh, it's okay. Everything's peaceful. Everything's like nice.
Yeah. There was one famous yogi, Jack Kornfield. Anybody read his books? Excuse me? No, that's a Jack someone else. Yeah, Canfield, that's right. Which are also good books. Jack Kornfield was this American guy who went off to India, and he worked with a yogi for years, and he became what he called enlightened. He saw the oneness. Having read his work, I believe it to be an accurate representation. He saw the great oneness of things, the unity behind the diversity. But he didn't take up devotional service. And then he came back to America, and then he wrote a book. And the book has an incredible title. Sadhaputta actually gave me the book to read. Gave it to me as a birthday present. He thought it was very important for what we do, which it is. And the name of the book was After Enlightenment, There is the Laundry. Meaning you got to come down to reality, and what do you do? And his conclusion of the book was exactly the same conclusion Prabhupada says happens to the Mayavadis and impersonalists. What happened? He started saying the real goal of life is to do charitable activities. And Prabhupada says that when the Mayavadi gets bored by their boredom of the oneness, then they fall down to just doing charitable activities, which is better than doing bad activities. I mean, better somebody be charitable than a Putin or something. We understand that. But that was it. And that was the end. And that's why Sadhaputta gave it to me, because it gave me such insight into what Prabhupada was saying to be so true. So the point of all this, and the reason I gave you some illusions, is we think we know this world, but our senses can be imperfect. We make mistakes. We have the four defects, and therefore, we rising above it. My Lord, you are situated in everyone's heart. The intelligence being covered doesn't see it. So to go back to the question, do we see God or not? The reason we don't is simply because of our coverings. And how do you rise above the coverings? Well, we can get our telescopes, our microscopes, and try to see smaller things, to see bigger things. You have the Webb telescope seeing to the edges of the visible universe. You have the electron microscope getting down to the level of the atom, but we still can't see God. Why? Because the only way you can see is by our own self-purification. Our seeing is limited. And again, the illusions to show you our seeing is limited. Not that that's not proof. Rupa Goswami clearly says that physical evidence, things we see, I'm just getting a brain block, Prabhupada, what's the Sanskrit word? Yes, thank you. Things we see and observe are evidence. They're evidence we take into account. At the Bhaktivedanta Institute, our job is to reconcile the seeing evidence with Shastric evidence. So we're not saying everything out there is totally an illusion. The illusion is the disconnection from Bhakti Yoga. I'll ask a simple question. What's the most sinful thing we can do to someone? Simple question. Yes. What's that? Ghost them. Yeah, we can do that, but most sinful. That might be sinful, most sinful. Yes. Yeah, just to not give them a chance to know Krishna. The most sinful thing is to take someone. That's why if you kill someone, they have this human body, and you kill someone, why is it so sinful? Because the human body has a potential, and you just zapped it. Okay, we are going to stop here. I'm going to summarize very briefly and see if there are 5 minutes of questions, answers, comments, critiques. I began with discussing the nature of illusion, gave you 2 different examples, a frog and some videos to show how trying to find God with just our senses won't be successful. Our senses are so easily fooled. I could give you hours of videos on that of different kinds of optical illusions, but I thought for just 3 minutes, I would give you some fun today in class. And in order to really, and the sons of Sagara here are saying, if you really, my Lord, if I really want to know you, is there a song like that? Yeah. Go on, go on. Very good. And that song, which really, it made so many devotees and touched my heart so deeply. That song says it. If we really want to know you, we have to work hard. What is that hard work that George is talking about? The hard work is purifying our consciousness, because our eyes can help us. I'm not saying we should walk around blind, but they're not going to take us there. And that's what's being taught here in this verse. With that, we'll stop here. Thank you very much. Are there any questions, answers, comments? Yes, Christina, then we'll go here.
Thank you very much for class, Prabhu. I want to go back to something you said earlier about the cosmological constants. So let's say you're talking about cosmological constants like, oh, speed of light and like, you know, the difference in weight between neutrons and protons, or like these very specific, very fine-tuned numbers. And somebody else says, well, but that was just random. Like it was just kind of, there's like a multiverse and, you know, there's like all different kinds of numbers. And this universe is the one where the cosmological constants just happen to end up that way. And, you know, it only seems magical to us because we are here to talk about it because those cosmological constants interacted in that way. So what would you say to that?
No, I'd say they're right. Okay, next question. Well, I mean, there is a concept of multiverse, or you know, that we're living in the same space we're occupying. There are many universes and or different concepts of it, but these concepts are there's every time one of these concepts comes out, somebody else will shoot it down. Now, string theory was on the way in. Now it's kind of on the way out, replaced by who knows what. So we can come up with a statistical argument that there are billions and billions of universes, and they all have different numbers. And if you take a monkey and put it on a typewriter, eventually you'll end up with Hamlet. I mean, you can say that. But Sariputta took that and said, okay, let's look at the numbers, and the numbers don't work. And if the numbers, it's such infinitesimal chances, then the only way around is say, well, there are just all these universes coming simultaneously. It's almost like a mathematical trick. You can't show that. You can't demonstrate it. There's no evidence of it. This is what we have. So you can have two explanations. One explanation is there actually is intelligence behind the universe. And the other is you come up with some kind of statistical theory that has no way of proving it. So that's a logical fallacy. We use Achman's razor. Anybody know what Achman's razor is? It means that in a philosophical thing, the simplest solution is likely the correct one. Don't get too complicated. And the simplest solution, the one that the overwhelming majority of people on earth have always believed, is that there's some intelligence behind everything. The other solution is you have to push math to its limits and it doesn't quite work. And we can go on for a long discussion on this, but there are other questions. But I'm glad you asked that one. That's the simple short answer. There's a much more elaborate one to be had. Yes, please.
Hare Krishna, thank you for the class. Could you explain what is the difference between chanting the rounds between Brahma Muhurta and in the afternoon?
What's the difference between chanting rounds in the morning and afternoon? The difference is taste. I find myself, people have, everyone's different. Some people maybe are not morning people at all, and they're evening people. But I find the taste is better in the morning than the evening. The mind, the modes of nature start impacting us, lower modes as we go on. There's a reason why we go to bed early. We go to bed early and get up. And if you've ever been downtown at the bar scene, who here has been downtown at 4 a.m? Never mind, at the bar scene. Never mind, we won't ask. Okay. If you're ever downtown at the bar scene at 4 a.m, and I've seen it. No, I wasn't in the bar. I used to be on the city plan board. I chaired it. And we once had to have meetings that went to like 2 a.m. It was horrible. And when I'd get downtown to City Hall, there was no one there. And when I left at 2 a.m, sometimes the streets were jammed with drunken students. And there's a reason why, we go to bed. The time of awake for the self-realized soul is the time of sleeping. Those indignant. There's a reason why we get up early. But everyone's different. I know a few Prabhus who just somehow or other chant their rounds at night better. So Prabhupada said there are no hard and fast rules. For most of us, the morning is a more auspicious, peaceful time. We know you talk to anybody who has that nasty art of being a fisherman. And you say, what's it like going out at 3 a.m. on the lake? And they'll all say the same thing. It's peaceful. It's wonderful. I mean, I was on a walk with Prabhupada about 6 a.m, this beautiful park in Denver. And the park overlooks the city skyline. And the city skyline, all these tall buildings. And that's the people working so hard to make all the money so the taxes can be paid, so the park can be built. And we're the only ones in the park. And Prabhupada says, look, they work so hard to make all the money to build the park, and we're the only ones who can really enjoy it because we're there at 6 a.m. So it's better in the morning for most people, but some people may vary. Again, no hard and fast rules. There are guidelines. Okay, another question? Yes, yours, turn.
I haven't read up on this, but I'm just making an educated guess that in the scientific world, there must be phenomenon out there that scientists fully believe in, even though with the help of even our most advanced technology, we can't observe or pinpoint those phenomenon, but we just know they must exist because we see their effects on some other observable phenomenon.
That's called dark matter.
So it's just interesting to me that scientists have faith in the existence of those phenomenon, but it's exactly like God. Like they also cannot observe, even with technology, they can't observe God.
but
Yeah.
they don't want to believe in God, but they'll believe in something like that.
Well, that takes us to a fifth canto issue, what you brought up. And it's quantum physicists after Einstein said, anybody who tells you they understand quantum physics doesn't. And if you study large relativity, which is the opposite end, large objects moving at fantastic speeds, anybody who says they really get it doesn't. It is so mysterious. The famous double slit experiment, where you send a beam of light through two slits and it makes a pattern on the screen behind it. And it makes a refraction pattern, which shows that light's a wave. But if you look at it, it turns into a particle pattern of just two, instead of a refraction pattern of multiple lines of waves canceling each other, turns into just two dots or lines, and nobody can explain that. And the observer can be a human or a machine. It's not consciousness necessarily. Nobody can explain these things. They're very mysterious. So the fifth canto is like that. The fifth canto is introducing quantum physics, modern relativity. Under Newtonian physics, the world was simple with a few laws. You know, for every action, there's a reaction. And you have laws of entropy, and we could explain the universe. And then it became the idea that if you can explain the universe and you had a big enough computer that could take every piece of data there is of motion and put it in, then it's determinism. We can predict everything that's going to happen. Turns out it doesn't work. Sariputta did a brilliant, one of the most brilliant papers on this called God and the Laws of Physics. Maybe I ran out of time to tell that story. What's that? Yeah, so I won't keep people from breakfast, but that's, somebody reminds me, another class I give, I'll tell the amazing story, which answers that question, of God and the laws of physics. Did you want to say one last little comment, Prabhupada Priya? Thank you.
Kujivana's question. There's like science, and then there's scientism or scienceism.
Yeah.
So yeah, science means, you know, using instruments and things to try to understand the world. And there are a lot of scientists, good scientists, reasonable scientists who believe in God. And they know that
71% now.
right. And they know that God can't be, you know, measured or found or, you know, proven or disproven by science. And they understand the limitations. And then there's the science-ismists,
Which is a religion.
which is basically a religion that they believe that everything can and must be proven by science. And if it can't be proven by science, it doesn't exist. So there's a difference.
I'll end with this little point. It's very simple. If I want to really study my iPhone, I can add instruments to it. I can take it apart, which I've done that one time. It's a lot of fun. Anyway, you get into what the inner workings are, and I can study it because I can control it. I can add instruments. But if I want to let's say I want to approach President Biden, I can't do that with my own. I need to make a huge campaign donation. I need to be friends with his chief of staff. I need to have some relationship to get there. So, and me is done by relationship. If God is greater than me, then the way to God is not in a laboratory where I control it. It's by a different method. And the tool is not electronic meters and oscilloscopes. The tools is devotion. I think that's the point you're making. With that, we will stop here before Shruti takes a cane and puts it here and yanks me away from the microphone. Hare Krishna, thank you very much. It's a pleasure being here at Krishna House. Hare Krishna.